Moses arrived in the period of the fulfillment of the times given by God to the patriarchs, Genesis 15 verse 13, when the people were already crying out to God and the 400 years of slavery had been completed. He had an encounter with God on Mount Horeb, and from that day on he fulfilled his calling as shepherd-deliverer of the people of Israel from Egyptian oppression. He is remembered as a prophet, leader, patriarch, and the man who spoke directly and constantly with God. Thanks to this, he received the tablets of the law with the 10 commandments and the guidelines for the construction of the tabernacle. However, that is not the aspect that you will see at this moment. Those are details that you already know in depth, or at least you have heard before. Our focus is on the personality of Moses. If you study the aspects presented in the sacred scriptures about Moses, you can see or grasp certainly interesting details. When we analyze Exodus 2 verse 11, we notice that Moses liked to interact with his brothers. The original word refers to his equals, that is, to other Hebrews. Already this facet of Moses shows us that he was a sociable person, enjoying the company and communicating with his peers. Right there, in Exodus 2 verses 11 to 12, while Moses went to his brothers of the Hebrew people and observed how difficult the servitude was, the mistreatment of an Egyptian towards a Hebrew caught his attention. We cannot say that they were light blows, since it was possibly not the first time that he went out to his brothers. This we confirm in the following verses when he goes out again and observes on this occasion 2 Hebrews fighting, and he was already aware of the situation and treatment that the Hebrews were facing from the Egyptians. So this situation must have gone far beyond the norm. This detail of the attack and death of the Egyptian reveals to us that Moses had a problem to some degree of anger or impulse control. His characteristics continued to show when he defended the daughters of Reuel, priest of Midian. Because of his extroverted and socializing character, in addition to his somewhat aggressive temperament, and that he had previously shown that injustices caused impulses in him, he intervened when he observed that they were mistreated by some shepherds when they tried to give water to their sheep. But how then do the Holy Scriptures describe him as the meekest person on earth? Numbers 12:3. To get there, Moses first had an encounter with God in the well-known story of the bush that burned and was not consumed, Exodus 3:1-6. That encounter revealed different things that Moses had in his heart, perhaps because of the experiences that made him flee from Egypt or those lived prior to that event. What is certain is that Moses had developed traumas that manifested themselves through his stuttering and the decrease of his confidence to present himself before his Hebrew brothers and the Egyptian people. If you read in detail what refers to Moses in the scriptures, you will notice that what characterized Moses were his repeated encounters with God that even became supernatural, because of the amount of time they kept meeting. Something that should not be overlooked, and I know that even you, if you have not totally surrendered, often do. I was there at one time. Remember that the Holy Spirit is God. And something that characterizes all those called in the Old Testament is the presence of the Holy Spirit over their lives. By praying or talking to God constantly, the Holy Spirit in Moses was strengthened. And the more he grew stronger, the more his human aspects diminished. So much so that there were periods when Moses would return from his encounter with God and his face would be so bright that they had to cover his face with a veil. The depth of this relationship and other details of his relationship with God are what led him to become the meekest man on earth. Remember, study the scriptures, stay prepared, and until the next video.